Someone asked me about the way we strike in Wing Chun, and do we only use the sort of whipping or the ball and chain strikes? Do we only use these sort of strikes in Wing Chun? And the answer to that is no. It's not the only way that we strike in Wing Chun. There's many different ways we strike, many variations, like in many martial arts. But I'll show you the two basic ways that we learn to strike and actually explain why we have this sort of strike in Wing Chun as well. But the first way you learn to strike in Wing Chun is actually a structural strike, like in most combat arts. And that's the centerline vertical punch. So the difference being, for example, when we have the sort of ball and chain, a structural strike would be using a whole body into a strike, meaning if I struck you with this, it's going through my whole body. If I did exaggerate it a bit, it'd be coming all the way down into my back leg into the ground. So that's using your structure to strike. Like this. It can still be quick. It's not a slow strike, but you're using the whole structure of your body to strike someone, basically. Also, you can see, like with this sort of strike, my elbow is right behind. So similar to compare these two basic ways of striking. It's similar to having a pole and striking with a pole. Bam. I haven't got a pole, but I got this. But it's similar to going boom and striking like this and having your body behind it. This is the first strike, and the elbow is directly behind, because it's like if you struck someone or punched someone and your elbow is directly behind, it's like a straight line pushing through, it penetrates through more. If my elbow was out and I punch, then obviously a lot of more force can come back, and you're kind of dissipating it. If the point was really hard, with the point of impact, you're more likely to buckle your arm. So your arm's more likely to actually fold in, whereas if your arms is one unit, then it's more likely to go straight through. But we do have these strikes as well in Wing Chun, obviously. These are just the two different concepts. So that's the first way you actually learn to strike, with this vertical punch. And you see it more generally in the basic stance with our pivot. But it's the same thing if we take the diagonal step, for example. If we step off the center line, now the structure is going down into this leg. But it's still a structural punch. We're just adding in rotation as well, which again is something used in most combat arts. But it's still a structural punch going through to my base of support. The ball and chain does not need a base of support when you're using it. So, for example, when you're doing ball and chain, this is with the arm. You can do obviously both these with your whole body, but just for example with your arm, now I'm not relying on structure. I'm using my joints and just transferring the force through. So that could be in Wing Chun we have a lot of eye strikes, from the outside in, or coming from the inside out. This can just be a quick eye strike, boom. With the fist, it's actually a back fist, either to the temple here, like this, or coming down. You learn in Lucca and drills like this early on, onto the nose. But these are quick strikes. But the reason we have these, and by the way, they're not just light strikes. Actually, they can be really heavy. You still let the force go through. You still make it heavy. So if it's light, it's not actually correct. It's still a heavy strike. Sometimes people do them and they're light, but they should have like a weight behind it. It's the idea of having a ball and chain. Obviously, you make it more minimal, so you're not whipping giant. It becomes more compact and really as big as you need it to be to complete the motion and make it efficient. But the other reason we have this one is simply this. If you have a strike that just relies on structure, whether it's with either hand, that just relies on this, then, for example, that's cool for certain scenarios, but maybe you're sitting down, try not to squash my mic, And now it's kind of hard for me to use a structural strike, because I don't have a base of support going to the ground when I'm sitting in this position. It's kind of not supported. I can't push off the ground to strike. It's really awkward. It's hard for me to do that now, but you can still use the whipping strikes. So if someone grabbed me and pulled me back and there was someone else in front of me, it's now hard for me to use my base of support. If they've taken my base of support and they're pulling me, for example, I don't have a base of support to punch from. So that's when you could still use the ball and chain. Yeah, so they're the two options, but that's why we have the ball and chain one as well as a structural one. We have both. One using structure, one using the whipping. And they're the reasons why, but also that's why one snake and crane are the two different basic ways of striking in Wing Chun. There's actually many more different ways of striking, but they're the two primary ways you learn to strike in Wing Chun, and you actually start with the structural one rather than the ball and chain, but you still learn them. Depends on where you're learning, but you still learn them early on. They're the two ways you learn straight away.